Let's create an Excel dashboard. This is a lengthier video, so like and save for later if you don't have time right now, and go to my site, executethevision.com, to sign up for an Excel class. Let's go to Insert Checkboxes. Then let's get a count of these. We're going to use the COUNTIF function. Select all of the checkboxes, comma, when they are true or when they're checked. Now what we need to do is go to this other tab and just link to that cell right now so that our total shows on the other tab, and we'll come back to that. Next, I am going up to the home menu and I'm going to align this, and we could turn this white or you could leave it if you want to see it, but if you turn it white, it will go away. And then all you do to add a date is just type in a date. No formula is required. Let's go up to Insert Shape. I am using the scroll shape because I want to add a title to the top of our file here. And let's move it in place. You can shrink these shapes down to however short or long you want them to be. And I'm going to double click inside and type in Finance Project. You can bold this, increase the font size. You can change the font color just like you can normal text. We can center vertically and horizontally. And then let's increase this quite a bit so it really stands out as a title. Next, I am going to go over here to this other tab and let's type in =1 in the not done column, and we're going to drag that all the way down. Then what we're going to do is select everything and Control-T to turn it into a table. Now, this formula needs to be followed exactly as shown, and essentially what it's doing is trying to figure out a place or a reference point for our steps. So we're going to use the row function and then again follow this exactly as shown. And we're referencing our headers in this table that's on here, as well as the step column. And then in the done section, we need to use an if statement, and we need to say if in that column of step, it is less than or equal to the cell we linked to or our total checkbox count. Then we're going to use 1, else we use NA, and now it's doing the spill because I didn't add the @ sign here. So now you see a bunch of NAs, but no reason for concern. We go back over to our other tab here, and you see as you check the checkboxes, it is putting a 1 in place. So what that's going to do is show as 1, 2, 3, and so on our chart as we progress here. So now next, let's use the unique function to get the unique list of owners. I'm going to right click, I'm going to Control-C and then right click to paste special values. That gets rid of our formula. Then let's do a COUNTIFs. Select all of the owner columns because we want to search that for each of the unique values we have, and then we want to return the number of checked checkboxes or the true checkboxes. So again, follow that formula exactly as shown, and we're going to divide it by a count of all of the available checkboxes because we want to get a percentage for each owner. So when I drag that down, let's test it out by checking our checkboxes. Make sure when you hit 10 out of 10, these total 100. Looks good. The reason they're different percentages is because each owner has slightly different contribution here, but we're going to just call it contribution on our chart because we just want to see who's done what. Now next, let's type in yes and no, and then let's do a COUNTIF of the number of yeses that we have and the number of no's. We're going to have a chart to show the on-time delivery, so whether it was on time, yes, or not with no. So as you type in yes and no, those will adjust. Next, we're going to go back over here and select our information, and let's insert a tree map. This isn't the most common chart that I use, but it's really handy in a case like this where you want to see contribution. The larger the section, the more or higher contribution. So let's also go to our other data here and insert a donut chart. So I'm resizing these down. I am definitely going to put shapes behind these to make them stand out. So what I want to do is really shrink these down so that you can get the shapes in here. If you were doing this on a computer monitor, it would be much easier, but I am on a mobile phone for the purpose of this video, so I really need to shrink these. So I'm going to click on the title on each, and I'm going to delete it because we're going to do some alternatives here. Click the legend and delete it, and then right click and format this donut chart. You can shrink that hole to make the donut thicker by just removing that or dragging it to the left. And then let's go to border and no line. I prefer not to have the white lines in between on our charts, so that's what I'm doing, but you don't have to do that. And I'm going up to here to the fill again and no line on border. Now it's starting to come together. So if I go over here and right click again, I want to do no fill on these charts. And I'm going to again right click. It's very difficult for me sometimes to grab the right thing here, but you want to make sure you're clicking on the right section. So you can either right click to format or you can click on it and you'll get your little paint can there. But either way, you want to make sure there's no outline and there's no fill, because when you put these on top of the shape, you don't want to see any additional lines. So again, with no line, that looks good. You can see the text through, so it worked. Now let's get started with our line chart. Select all of this information. This is our step chart, but it's going to start as a line chart. I'm going to right click and format on this axis first. So let's go to axis options here. And we're going to do 2 here because we want to center our line. So later on, when you delete all of these other things here, don't delete the chart. Again, I have trouble selecting. Select the legend, lines, all of that to delete. It's centered in the middle, so that looks nice. It's easier to work with. So now I'm going to move this over so you can see that you've got a left side here that is darker blue and right that is lighter blue. Go up to format and choose the done versus not done here. It's much easier than trying to select what you're trying to work with here. So the width is going to be 10 on the line. The marker under marker options built in is going to be 35. You can adjust that up or down depending on how large you want the circles. And then let's change that color to light gray if it's not done. Now, if it's done, we're going to do the same thing. We need to match the same numbers, so 35, and let's do a solid fill of a blue color. We want it to highlight blue when it is checked off as true. Now, if I go back in here, I'm going to do no border on these, no line, just like everything else. But again, choose whatever makes sense for you. And then what we can do here is click on the done. I'm going to go back up to format, click on done, right click. We need to adjust that line in the back. It needs to be the same height as the light gray. So when you go to line, we just need to change that to 10 so it matches properly, and somehow that got missed. So 10 looks good. Close it out. Now what we can do is Control X and Control V. That is essentially going to cut and paste on another tab, and then we can resize and move into place as needed. We are going to need to do the same thing to make sure there is no background on this one or no outline as well. So let's drag our title across. When you're done with all of this, you will need to make some adjustments to make sure everything fits in properly. You want to make sure your dashboard above everything else looks really nice once you are about to send it out. So I inserted my shape and I'm changing this to that very light gray color, and I'm going to right click and send to back. Just like PowerPoint or anything else you use, you need to adjust layers on these shapes. So again, with no border. And now let's move that in place. And you can see it's like as though these are one item. You do not see any separation there. Now let's add some fanciness to it. Let's do a bevel so it looks like it stands off the page. And then I'm just going to Control C, Control V to copy paste so I don't have to go through all of those steps again. The only thing you should really have to do is send to back, right click, send to back, and then resize these as needed. So now I'm just going to move these in place. And I'm going to change our background here to a gray. So if you want to do that and you have text here that you don't want showing anymore, when you're done with it, you can just change the font to match the same color as the background. So I'm going to select all of these cells back here and our headings here, and then we'll go with a gray color. And so now you can see that you've got some text here standing out we don't need to see, so let's change that to the darker gray. And then this as well to the darker gray. Now I'm going to select all of this, and you can hit Control+1 or right click and format, and you're going to have your border options. So if you select something like a light blue to match the rest of our theme, you can hit those inside options, and then you've got the blue border. Next, I'm going up to illustrations, and I'm going to insert more shapes. So I'm going to do a 3D rectangle here. This is going to be where our title is going to go for these. And so if you double click, you can type in something like contribution, center it, increase the font size. And same thing when you're done here, you can just Control C, Control V to copy paste and move it right over to the other chart as well and do the same thing. We're going to double click in there. This will be on time delivery. That is how you insert shapes and how you type in them. So we've done a few different ones. I am going to skip over these button looking ones right here because it's the exact same thing that you go through. We're just going to copy paste just for time here. So copy paste these, you can double click and type in to match the columns there. These are a rectangle, and they have a bevel, and then they were typed in. So we're just going to resize these appropriately. And then next, we're going to right click on our chart up here and let's get some numbers on here. I have a really hard time clicking the proper area. So now let's format our data labels, and we need to do values from cells. So we're going to go back to our other chart and select our steps listed 1 through 10 because we want to see 1 through 10 going across, and then uncheck the others and let's center these. Now I accidentally added values twice, so I need to delete one. So now let's go back up to font and make this much larger and white so it really stands out. Now you can go ahead and go through the exact same process for this donut chart. You need to do the same thing where you select the value from cells and make sure you're catching the values from the yes, no area. And you're all done. Looking good.